Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? It's been such a long time, hasn't it, since we've spoken casually and informally here in the car, speaking about important matters. And today, inshallah, I want to do a clarificatory video, basically on the issue of using philosophy and Dawah. Now, this has been quite a sticky subject, especially with some segments. I have to say, tiny segments, puny segments of the Salafi community. Not all the Salafi, of course, not the Salafi community. No, definitely not. Some segments. But even for them and for their followers, I make this concession. I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. First of all, what is philosophy? Philosophy is, as I understand it, okay, and according to Cambridge Dictionary, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's the use of reason. It is actually the use of reason to understand things about existence, knowledge and existence. Now, this is my understanding of philosophy. In other words, rational arguments, intellectual arguments, and philosophical arguments, for me, can almost be used interchangeably. Let me say that one time. If someone says I want to make rational arguments, for me, they are making philosophical arguments. And if they're making philosophical arguments, they are attempting to make rational arguments. If they're making intellectual arguments, they're making philosophical arguments, and so on and so forth. That's what we mean by philosophy. Now, what we don't mean by philosophy is Greek logic. Some people have come out, unfortunately, have strawmanned my position, have lied actually quite openly. Maybe it wasn't a lie, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a slip of the tongue, maybe it was a mistake, whatever. And said that my position basically is that you have to use Greek logic in order to come to the truth of Islam. I've never made such a statement in my entire life. I don't even think I've made such a statement in my dreams. I don't think even I made such a statement in my dreams. And so, having said that, Greek philosophy or Hellenistic philosophy, Greek logic or Hellenistic logic or Aristotelian logic is not what I intend by the word philosophy. I don't think it's what anyone intends with the word philosophy. So if you're making an argument for God's existence, for example, and the exact wording is not to be found in the Quran, you can't say this is a use of Greek logic. This would be illogical. Now, here's the thing. Is it true to say that the best arguments, say for God's existence, say for the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, say for the butlan or the falsehood of polytheism, are arguments in the Quran? Absolutely. This is the position of Ibn Taymiyyah, and this is the position I adopt, no doubt. And this is coming from someone who, inshallah, I'm specializing in academically in arguments for God's existence. I have good exposure, academic exposure to arguments for God's existence. And what I will say is this: every single argument for God's existence, which, for example, has a contingency basis, okay, starts, I believe, or the usul of it, or the foundations of it, are أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves the creators of themselves? Because almost every contingency argument that is made, whether it is made cosmologically or ontologically, proposes that there cannot be a world with only things which are self-generatable and or self-maintained. And the idea of self-generation and self-maintenance, or the impossibility of it for dependent things, comes from the fact that Allah, He gives us the example, the ultimate example of ourselves. Am khuliqu min ghayri shay. Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves, or by nothing, or were they themselves the creators of themselves, or were they themselves the creators of themselves? And so, all arguments that we use actually go back to this, and this is the foundation. And Ibn Taymiyyah states that, in fact, this is the best way to argue for God's existence. He mentioned this in Mas'alat Haduth al-Alam, his kitab. That is not to say that you cannot use arguments or wording which is not in the Quran to explicate or otherwise explain how God exists or so on. And how do we know this? Ibn Taymiyyah himself mentions it. And why am I keep mentioning Ibn Taymiyyah? Because this is Umdah for Salafis. Okay, this is Umdah for everyone agrees that he understands these masail from at least the Hanbalite / Salafite Athari understanding, and he has commented on them. And I've made a video before speaking about Abdurrahman Hassan and his discussion in Kalam with similar problems that are found here. I am saying, Ibn Taymiyyah stated in his Kitab Al-Radd al-Mantiqiyin, and I'm paraphrasing here, but there are some people, he states, that كلما كان الدليل أخفى وأدق كان أنفع له. I've said this so many times that I've almost bloody memorized it. That so there are some people that who are more analytical, who every time that the dalil was more complicated and sophisticated, it was more useful to them. And this kind of person يستعمل معه الطريقة الكلامية المنطقية. This kind of individual, you use a kalam type approach with them, which is based on logic. This is from Ibn Taymiyyah. So let me give you an easy example, okay? Another easy example. Many people in the Dawah have used Hamza Zor's very famous line, which is that the universe can't self-generate, and this is similar to a mother giving birth to herself, the impossibility of a mother giving birth to herself. Now, the phrase, the mother giving birth to herself, is not in the Quran, but it's actually not in opposition to the Quran, and in fact, it has usul in the Quran, the Quranic expression, Am humul khaliqun, or are they themselves the creators of themselves? So although the exact wording is not there, it's mumkin yutakhayal, it's possible, or yajuz, you can say, and tustakhdam, and that words are used, alfadun, laysat fil kitab, or fi kitab Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that are not in the Quran, ولا يعارضه, and it doesn't go against it. And this is what we're saying, it doesn't go against it. And they're rational arguments, meaning they're philosophical arguments. These are the kinds of arguments we are talking about. We are not talking about arguments which have ta'arud of the Quran. We're not talking about arguments. We're not even talking about arguments which don't have usul in the Quran. Okay. Now, a comment I made in the previous show was erroneous. I said that it would be circular reasoning to try and prove the Quran with the Quran. What I should have said, and this is a fine refutation, that it would be circular reasoning to use the Quran to prove the Quran by justifying that it's true because the Quran says so. That's actually true. I should have said it like that. Trying to make it within 1 minute. I'm not doing that in this video because sometimes when you try and make things within a minute, you end up making blunders. So having said that, we're not saying, what I meant by that, by the way, was that when you're speaking to an atheist, he doesn't take the Quran as revelation. He doesn't take it as something that he believes or she believes is true. And so you use arguments which would be true independent of the Quran, had the Quran not been there. So the argument where we created from nothing, where we ourselves the creators of ourselves, and this kind of this postulation, which drives us to a third conclusion, which that in fact we had something which is outside a cause of us or to explain us or whatever. This is independent of the Quran being there or not. The Quran doesn't have to be there in order for that to be true. And so that's what I meant. Okay, maybe some people didn't understand. Fine, no problem. The articulation, I'll take the blame, no problem, was my fault. But this is what I meant. That our arguments, when we say from first principles, they are independent of the articulations of the Quran. They don't depend on the Quran being there or not. And that's what we mean. And that's what kind of arguments need to be made in order for our religion to be taken seriously from people that don't believe in it. And if you abandon this, then you abandon everything. You abandon rational inquiry. Then you can't really even do dawah, quite frankly. And so that's it, really. You can try and do dawah. Of course, you can just stand there and read the Quran and translate it, and that is a fine way of doing dawah. But the moment you start using examples or you start using arguments outside the Quran, then you're defying your own principle, because you're using philosophical argumentation outside of the Quran. And I just want to say, and I don't mean this to be rude, but brothers who's speaking about philosophy and these kind of things, and rational argumentation and Greek logic, please beware that this is a specialism, right? This is something that people study academically, And it's not for anyone, kullu man habba wa dab, to come up and speak in front of a camera to be taken seriously about these matters. And if you want more information about this and see what Ibn Taymiyyah said, then please look at the video that I've done with about Abdurrahman Hassan's. There are similar mistakes.